Hi, welcome. My name is Laurie Groh, and today we're here with Julia Frank with week 4 of Guided Imagery, our visualization mini-series. And thanks again, Julia. I've loved every single one. I'm excited for today, and this will be our final one. So thanks again.
Yeah. All right. Everyone. Today we're going to be talking guided imagery. So just a brief, if you haven't been here in a few weeks, my name is Julia Frank. I am a master's student in Shoreside Therapies. I graduated from the University in Ohio with a master's in psychology in 2024, and I'm currently in the semester of my mental health counsel program at the university. I am currently specializing in child and adolescent counseling, and I've been at Shoreside as an intern since last January, and I've been seeing clients independently since last April. I'm really passionate about working with children, adolescents, and young adults, especially those who are facing anxiety, trauma, and any significant life changes like divorce, medical diagnoses, moving, grief and loss, anything along those lines. And I really love using visualization as a mindfulness technique with my clients. And I find that it's really helpful in easing anxiety symptoms, helping my clients to be present, and building their self confidence. Okay, so just a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We'll do an introduction into what guided imagery is. We'll talk about benefits of using this practice, some real life examples, some tips for using visualization techniques. We'll practice guided imagery, and then we'll debrief our experience. We'll talk about some key points for continuing this practice going forward, and then we'll wrap up with some final reflections and some journaling, and we'll have time for any questions if anyone has questions at the end. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how does everyone feel about guided imagery? Lori said it's a 9 for her. I feel similarly. I feel like when I use it, it's super helpful, and I always really see a benefit from it, but it doesn't always come up in my mind as the immediate thing to use. So sometimes it takes a little digging for me to realize oh, this would be really helpful right now. Okay. Go ahead and move on. So what is guided imagery? Guided imagery is a relaxation technique. It uses words, music, or mental focus to create a calming and sensory rich mental image that is meant to reduce stress, alleviate any emotional pain you might be experiencing, and improve your overall well being. So, benefits of using this type of visualization, specifically with guided imagery, it improves focus and concentration. Specifically with this kind of visualization, it's super detail oriented and it's really focused on creating an entire scene around you. You're focused on visualizing a calming scene. So maybe it's like you're at the beach and you're visualizing the waves and you're visualizing the temperature of the air and you're really trying to immerse yourself in that scene that you're creating. So it really sharpens your ability to focus in that moment because you're so focused on creating such a detailed scene around you. Specifically with guided imagery, it can increase optimism and other positive emotions. Typically, it's very calming, helps you to feel more present, more regulated. It also increases regulation of more challenging emotions such as anxiety or feeling overwhelmed. So, using this technique when you're feeling that increased anxiety, you're feeling overwhelmed, it can be really helpful in helping to bring those emotions down and help you feel a little bit more regulated. Of course, it reduces stress and anxiety, really eases the mind as you visualize that calm environment. And then it promotes better sleep and relaxes both the mind and the body. So, there was a really interesting study done in 2023 meant to kind of examine the impact of guided imagery and the effect that it has on people who practice it over time. And so in this study, they measured the brainwave activity of participants while they were practicing guided imagery. And then they gave them some tests that assessed their attention and focus afterwards. And what they found was that guided imagery is an effective strategy for both stress reduction and relaxation. And they found that the people in this study had higher levels of alpha power when they measured their brainwave activity, which is a really strong indicator of brainwaves that are related to that improved attention and improved focus. So they found that by practicing that guided imagery and then taking those tests, they had better results on their attention and focus after that guided imagery session compared to the people who did not do the guided imagery session before those same tests. The findings of the study were consistent with any existing research that had been done on the efficacy of visualization, but overall, there's still kind of a lack of information and research specifically on this technique. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes out in the future about this continued practice. But what we have right now is pretty promising in terms of its effects. So, what are some specific situations that you can use this guided imagery practice for? Like we talked about, stress reduction can be really helpful in grounding you in the present, helping you to manage that anxiety, manage that stress that you might be feeling. Can be really helpful in resilience building. So, if you're facing a challenge, you can visualize yourself going through it or visualize a scene that kind of represents that challenge in a more symbolic way. It can also help with acceptance of difficult experiences. So, maybe you're experiencing something difficult and then you're visualizing, like we'll do today, you'll visualize yourself as a mountain withstanding a storm. So it'll kind of serve as that symbol of what you might be experiencing. Guided imagery, also, there's some research indicating that it can be helpful for pain management for people with chronic illnesses or chronic pain. And it can really help with grounding you in the present, that acceptance of the pain that you might be experiencing, understanding that it might come and go throughout your day or throughout your week. And so it can be really helpful in managing that. And then, of course, promotes relaxation. So it can be really helpful right before you go to bed to kind of wind down, prepare your mind and body for sleep, and get into that more relaxed state. So before we practice, I wanted to go over some tips for using visualization, any technique, but specifically the one we'll be doing today, which is the guided imagery. So, first, you want to define a clear goal or purpose for your visualization. With the one we're going to be doing today, I'm kind of going to guide you around what you're going to be visualizing, but there will be times where it asks you to kind of imagine any hardships or any difficulties, stress that you might be experiencing. And so when we get to that point, really try and focus in on what it is that's stressing you out right now, what it is that feels difficult or challenging in your life. And the more you're able to kind of define that clear goal and stick to it, the more effective the effects of the visualization will be. Secondly, you want to get into that relaxed state. Get into a comfortable position, whatever that looks like for you. Might be sitting, might be laying down. If you're sitting at a desk, maybe you want to lay your head down on your arms or on the table. You can close your eyes if that feels comfortable. And then, of course, take some deep breaths while we go through the visualization. I'll kind of start and end with some deep breathing, but as we go throughout the middle of it, make sure that you're continuing to breathe and be present. Next, you want to engage your senses. So, like we talked about, the more vividly you can imagine the scene that you're creating, um, the stronger the effects of it will be. So, if you can get all of your senses involved, imagine what it's really like to be there. Focus on what you might see, what you might hear, smell, taste, or feel in that environment that you're imagining. That really helps the effects of it to be even more significant. So, that relaxation that you'll feel will be even greater if you can engage your senses. Next, we also want to focus on emotions. So, as we kind of progress through the visualization that I'm going to lead everyone through, there will be a point where you're kind of imagining how withstanding the stress that you're experiencing or making it through the end will feel. And so, in that moment, you want to really focus on what emotions come up for you. Maybe it's confidence, maybe it's joy, maybe it's contentment or peace. The more connected to your emotions you can feel throughout the practice, the greater those emotional effects will be. So, if you can really connect with what it might feel like to have that sense of peace or contentment, the greater it will translate to real life once you're done. And then lastly, want to address any potential obstacles. So, mentally rehearse anything that could go wrong, how you might handle challenges calmly and effectively throughout our practice. All right. So, we're going to give it a try. I want to invite everyone to kind of get into a comfortable space. If they want to turn the lights off or do anything like that, that might require them to get up. I'll give everyone a minute to do that. And then we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully, everyone's situated and ready to practice. So, I'm going to invite everyone to close your eyes or to take a soft gaze on whatever might be in front of you. Take a moment to center yourself. Notice the feeling of your feet on the floor, the feeling of the chair, maybe the ground beneath you, and the feeling of your breath moving in and out of your body. As you continue to breathe deeply, call to mind the image of a mountain. It might be somewhere you've been before, or somewhere brand new. Think about what the mountain looks like. What color is it? What texture does it have? Maybe it's rocky and treacherous, or smooth with a winding path around it. Think about the weather on and around the mountain. Is it warm and sunny? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is the weather different at the foot of the mountain compared to the top? What temperature is the air around the mountain? Now consider how a mountain withstands a storm. It stays firm in its place through all kinds of weather. The mountain is unwavering through the snow and rain. It remains strong even when its surroundings are chaotic and out of control. It weathers the storm well and eventually finds itself in the sunshine again. Now, I'd like you to picture yourself as the mountain in a storm. What is the storm swirling around you right now? Maybe it's stress with school or with work, with your loved ones, with the state of the world around you. Maybe it's all of those or a combination of some of them, or maybe it's something else entirely. Imagine yourself as you weather this storm. Acknowledge whatever it is that you're feeling, the stress, the worry, the lack of control, and let it blow past you into the distance. Accept that while this might be your reality in the moment, it won't last forever. Remind yourself that you have weathered storms in the past, and you are strong enough to make it through this one. Look into the distance and see the sun beginning to rise. It is now clear that the storm won't last forever. You have made it through the hardest part. Let any remaining worries blow away as the storm finally passes. Take note of how you feel leaving that stress behind. Do you feel lighter, relieved, calm? The sun has now risen. Take a moment to feel the stillness of the air around you. Now that the storm has passed, feel the warmth of the sun shining down on you. You weathered the storm and never wavered. Shift your focus to your breath and take a few deep breaths at whatever pace is comfortable. And take one final deep breath and return your focus to your surroundings whenever you feel ready. As we come back after practicing, I have some questions up on the screen for everyone. How was that experience for you? What did you feel? What thoughts were brought up? And how do you feel like you might use this in the future? If you'd like to share, go ahead and type your response in the chat, or you can just take a moment to consider and reflect on these questions for yourself. Lori said she feels much better and this helped with her migraine. I'm so glad. Showing that impact on chronic pain management as well, it seems. If anyone else wants to share, go ahead and type your response in the chat. Like about one more minute. Kaylee said she's used to visualizing a tree. She liked the change of using a mountain with a storm passing, and she feels like she'll be able to use this one more often. I love that. And I think that kind of nature connection can be really helpful and really calming for a lot of people, whether it's a mountain or a tree or you're imagining, waves in the water. I feel like that kind of nature category or type of visualization can be really grounding for a lot of people. And yeah, I feel like the storm passing can be really can really resonate with people in terms of like withstanding any stress or any hardship that they might be experiencing right now. It can be really hard when you're in the thick of it to imagine or understand what it might feel like to have that storm or that hardship pass, but can be really helpful in terms of helping you navigate it or helping you get through it in the moment. And Lori said, especially because we had a huge storm last night. Definitely made it easy to visualize, for sure. All right, I'll go ahead and move on. So, as we start to wrap up and we start to think about continuing this practice outside of the webinar and in your daily life, some important points to keep in mind if you want to continue this. First, using that first person perspective tends to produce better results than visualizing yourself from that outsider perspective. So, like when we practice and we shifted from that outsider perspective where we were imagining the mountain to then shift to imagining us as the mountain, a lot of times when you're in that first person perspective, you get those deeper results of like emotional regulation and those calming effects of it as well. So in your practice outside, if you can continue to use that first person perspective, at least for part of your visualization, that tends to have stronger results. Secondly, the more vividly you can visualize, the more effective it will be. So when we talked about using your senses and focusing on emotions, typically focusing on both of those, trying to get those as involved in the visualization as possible creates that more immersive experience. And then lastly, consistency is really key. So the more you practice visualization, the stronger those neural pathways in your brain will be. Any repeated mental rehearsal of the same task or repeated visualization of a similar guided imagery scenario tends to lead to the best results because it's like any sort of muscle or any sort of skill. You have to practice it in order for it to become stronger and more effective. So keep all of those in mind as you go forward and continue this practice in your own life. And then lastly, with our last few minutes, take a few minutes if you want to jot anything down on maybe a piece of paper or in a note on your phone or device. Consider these questions. So, after learning more about visualization and practicing it, how might your opinions on it have changed? What reflections do you have on your experiences today? And what stood out most to you about practicing guided imagery? We'll give everyone like 3 minutes to think on these. And if you want to type anything in the chat and share it with everyone, feel free to do so. Lori said it's getting easier and easier for her as we've been practicing. I feel like that's really the key, right? It can feel really maybe awkward at first, or I know at least for me, like I tend to really struggle with like meditations that are more open. And so having those like guided prompts can be really helpful. But of course, the more you practice it, the more familiar it gets. The easier it feels to maybe come up with these more detailed visualizations, because that can feel really overwhelming if you're like, okay, I need to have my emotions involved and I need to involve my senses. And what does this look like? And what does this look like? The more you practice it, it can start to feel much
much
easier
easier
as you
as you
start
feel really.
Yeah. It's like a muscle, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely.
Yeah. It's been incredible, Julia, in the last 4 weeks of doing this practice with you. And just want to say thank you for sharing this with us. So, if anyone has any questions or wants these to be sent to them, you can, of course, go to our website and